Well, it was fun while it lasted. But considering that the first 5 movies in this era were really good, I think that's an accomplishment. I mean, the only 5 movies of the Golden Age were pretty good as well, so it's a nice track record, all things considered. Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Pocahontas, which is the 6th movie in the Disney Renaissance and their 33rd movie overall. The movie is based off the Palatine princess Pocahontas, and 2 things before I continue. A, I hope I pronounced that word correctly. If I didn't, please tell me in the chat. And 2, I say based off in the most loose terms possible. Anyway, this movie is about Pocahontas as English settlers arrive to her land, start strip mining the place to try to find gold, but one of the settlers, John Smith, encounters Pocahontas, starts gaining an appreciation for her land, but soon things start to escalate when the settlers and Pocahontas' own people are at odds to each other to the point where a war might break out. Tell me if you've ever experienced this when you were a kid. You see a movie for the first time, you have a certain opinion on it. In one instance, for the sake of this conversation, let's just say you like that movie. So you automatically think everyone else in the world likes it just because you like it. And then once you get older and you gain access to the internet, which is pretty much a gateway to everyone voicing their opinions on certain subject matters, whether it's politics, sports, or movies, you suddenly realize that not everybody shares the same opinion that you have. Pocahontas was always that movie for me. I didn't watch this a whole lot growing up, but I remember kind of enjoying it, although to be honest, I don't remember much about it. The biggest memory I actually have of Pocahontas was actually of a stage show that Disneyland used to have, I think when the movie came out, and the biggest thing that caught my attention from that show was an animatronic grandmother Willow. So that always stuck out to me, but the movie itself, I just don't have that many fond memories of it, but I have seen this before. I remember liking it, but the first time I ever thought to myself, maybe this movie doesn't hold up, is when I saw Lindsay Ellis's review of the movie back when she was known as the Nostalgia Chick. She basically picked Pocahontas as her audition tape, and that got her the role. And since then, I've learned that Pocahontas might not be one of the better Disney movies out there, but I just didn't really have a desire to rewatch it up until this series of reviews. And yeah, it's not really that good of a movie. I mean, by comparison of the first 5 movies in this era, it's a massive drop in quality, but I don't think it's terrible. I want to start off with the good stuff, because I think there's a lot about this movie that can be admired, and unfortunately because of this movie's reputation, not a lot of people give these elements the credit they deserve. For one, the animation style. It's not drastically different compared to the other movies in the Renaissance, but the character designs are quite different from the typical look that you'd see in Little Mermaid or Aladdin, and it's mainly due to the main character's eyes. They're not as big or cartoonish as those other movies. Another thing I like about the movie is all the background art. The overall art direction in this movie is astonishing. The backgrounds are just beautiful to look at. Sometimes they'll have a very abstract nature to them, no pun intended. And even if there are parts of this movie that I'm not really into, I could just look at the backgrounds and go, wow, that is gorgeous. In a way, it reminds me of the art direction in Bambi, just how beautiful that movie looked with its backgrounds. I think the overall score is pretty good, and I do give this movie credit for at least trying to be more mature in terms of its story and the overall themes. But unfortunately, that's where the positives end for me, because as much as this movie has some things to appreciate, and as much as they went into this story with good intentions, none of those intentions were met. The characters themselves are not too interesting. I mean, I like the voice cast you have. Irene Bedard does a good job at voicing Pocahontas, and once again, Glenn Keane is the supervising animator for this character, so the animation work is very good. Even though Mel Gibson is very problematic nowadays, he's fine as John Smith. You'll recognize Billy Connolly's voice as one of the settlers. David Ogden Stiers does the best job that he can as the main villain. And one voice that I don't think a lot of people recognize or even mention when it comes to the cast here is Christian Bale. Christian Bale voices John Smith's best friend, and this was early in his career. This was like a full 10 years before he became Batman in Batman Begins, and just 5 years before he would be in American Psycho as Patrick Bateman. But I didn't recognize the voice this time around. Maybe because whenever I see Christian Bale in a movie, he's always doing an American accent, so I'm just not used to hearing him with his natural British accent. So the actors do the best job that they can with their material, but the characters themselves don't really succeed all that much due to the writing. The villain of the movie is Governor Ratcliffe, and he's just kind of generic. He doesn't have that same evil spark the way villains like Ursula, Jafar, and Scar had. And his character design is the only one that I look at and go, yeah, I'm not really digging this all that much. So, yeah, Governor Ratcliffe as a villain just doesn't really do it for me. And then there are two other elements that really hurt this movie because, like I said before, it's trying to be more mature. It's trying to at least tell this story in a more serious manner than you would something like Aladdin, per se. But one of the things that really hurts this movie are the songs. Now, the two songs that Pocahontas herself sings, Just Around the River Bend and Colors of the Wind, are fine, and I think they actually fit well with the movie, but everything else is generic as hell. And there's part of me that suspects that this could be a result of The Rescuers Down Under not doing well when it came out. Because out of all the movies I've reviewed of the Renaissance so far, that's the only one that was not a musical. So I wonder if that movie was a bigger hit, would Disney have taken more of a risk and not made every single film a musical? Because when the rest of the movies up until this point are just juggernauts because of that fact, they just figured, oh, we need to make every movie from here on out a musical. And yeah, Pocahontas, it doesn't work. And another thing that really doesn't work are the cute animal sidekicks. And there are 3 different animal sidekicks in this movie that really serve no purpose. Miko and Flint are Pocahontas's raccoon and hummingbird friends. And then you have Percy, who is the main villain's pet pug. And look, I'm all about pugs. Pugs might be my favorite dog in the world. I mean, the very opening of my review for The Mitchells vs. the Machines was me telling you how there was a pug in it and it's awesome. But these animal sidekicks have no reason to be in the movie. There's a sequence in the movie where Pocahontas meets her father after he's come back to the village. And they're having a conversation on how Pocahontas is going to wed one of the other natives in the village. But during this entire sequence that's supposed to be very heartfelt and progress the story and its characters, you have Miko and Flint crawling around the shelves, getting into shenanigans, and breaking dishes. And it's just too much. And the thing is, they're all pointless. It's just like the birds in The Fox and the Hound, where they really have no reason to be in this movie, and if you were to cut them out, we wouldn't have lost anything. And that really hurts to say, considering that one of these animal sidekicks is a pug. So thanks a lot, Pocahontas. You actually made me go, yeah, get rid of the pug. Now, all that being said, the animal sidekicks never got to a point where they just frustrated me with how annoying they were. I just felt an overall meh with them and just the overall movie. It's very cliche, it's very predictable, and the fact that it tries to balance 2 different tones, telling a serious story while also bringing in like the cutesy elements for kids, doesn't really work. They should have gone with the former and actually tried to make this a more serious and straightforward retelling of Pocahontas, even if it is incredibly inaccurate to history. So I would just watch at your own risk. It's not as terrible as people make it out to be, but it's certainly not good. And the last thing I have to address in terms of criticisms directed towards this movie is that it's part of the trend of the Great White Hope movies. And I guess in a way it is. I mean, people often compare this and Avatar as 2 prime examples of that trope. And to be honest, I think Avatar is a much better movie than Pocahontas. But with Pocahontas, John Smith isn't really all that heroic. I mean, sure, he's the strong-jawed tough guy of the settlers group, but when he starts to gain a bigger appreciation for nature and Pocahontas' world, he doesn't really turn his back on the people he came with. John Smith gets captured by Pocahontas' tribe because the man that Pocahontas was supposed to marry gets killed by the character voiced by Christian Bale. So John Smith is about to get his brain smashed in by her father until she intervenes and says, "I love him." And then that's when both sides lay down their weapons, except for Governor Ratcliffe, who tries to shoot Pocahontas' father, but John Smith gets in the way and takes the bullet, only for the rest of the English settlers to capture and tie up Governor Ratcliffe because he shot one of their own. I guess people could make the argument that, well, Pocahontas fell in love with John Smith, so just by that alone, he's kind of the great white savior. And yeah, I guess I could see your point in that, but like I said before, he doesn't turn his back on his people the same way Jake Sully did with Avatar. I guess it is the same within the most minimal sense, but it's completely different than what Avatar presents. Again, I think Avatar overall is a much better movie, but Pocahontas, I don't think falls into the same category of the Great White Hope trope the way Avatar does. So again, watch at your own risk. It's not terrible, but it's not a movie that I'd ever want to revisit. And there you go, that's my review for Pocahontas. Definitely a big step down from the other movies in the Disney Renaissance. And the fact that this movie came out just 5 months before the release of Toy Story probably didn't help Disney animation in general. I mean, they gained Pixar, so that's a plus. But from this point forward, none of the official Disney canon movies would be anywhere as successful as The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, or The Lion King, at least not until you get to 2009 and 2010 with The Princess and the Frog and Tangled. But we've got a ways to go before we get to those movies. And next week we're going to talk about the 7th movie in the Disney Renaissance, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And unlike Pocahontas, this is a movie that I've actually watched a lot as a kid, and I recently rewatched it. You'll have to wait till next week to hear my thoughts on it. But before we get to that review, I want to hear what you guys think about Pocahontas. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching my review for Pocahontas. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.